the moment I started being myself, talking about who I am, being all over the media, talking to things, being on podcasting, being vulnerable, the moment I started doing that was the moment things opened up for me, and was the moment it just went poof, and I couldn't keep up.
Hello and welcome to Curious as Hell, a podcast about leading and growing in today's world. I'm your host, Tyler Chisholm, and I'm excited, as I always am, to be here with my guest today, Bobbie Racette. How you doing, Bobbie?
I'm great, Tyler. Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming on, fitting me into what is surely a busy schedule. You've had a lot on the go. So for our audience, a little bit of history. Bobbie and I first met in, I think it was June 2020, in the very early days of a company that you have grown and you've evolved and you've exited, Virtual Gurus. So why don't we give the audience, if they don't know you, which most people that will listen do, give us a little bit of the story. Give us the Coles Notes. I know it's a big journey, but especially where you've landed in the last 6 months, because that's when things have really changed for you.
Yeah. Wow, that was 2020 is so long ago.
Lifetimes.
So yeah, I'm Bobbie, founder of Virtual Gurus. So about 8 years ago, I actually started Virtual Gurus because nobody would give me a job. I mean, you know, they call me a trifecta, right? Like, and we've talked about this before, but a queer woman, but an Indigenous woman, and in tech. So that's that kind of hits a lot of angles from different way that people weren't ready to support in 2016. And so I was out looking for work constantly. Nobody would hire me. And I started seeing on Kijiji, like, you know, freelancer, virtual assistant needed this and that. So I started sourcing myself out. And Virtual Gurus was born in a way of being able to provide myself work because nobody else would give me the opportunity. I'm happy I took that gamble and went for it. But, you know, who would have thought what it would have exploded to? And then on the side of Virtual Gurus, which I have now since exited, and we can get into more of that, I am the chair of the Queer Tech organization. Queer Tech is a organization where we are creating and creating and building the next generation of queers in tech.
That's awesome. Based out of Montreal, I think, right?
Yeah, based in Montreal.
I grew up in Montreal, so whenever I see the word Montreal, it catches my attention.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's
must have some,
great organization to be a part of. I am also the chair of the Indigenous Prosperity Foundation. So what we are doing is the same. We built a launchpad with DMZ in Toronto. And Launchpad is where we are helping and giving resources to the next generation of Indigenous aspiring founders or people that want to get into business. We're giving micro grants to get them through, so we're not taking equity, and helping people kind of explode and get the resources they need.
You're just giving them the money they need to get it going.
Yeah.
What would constitute? I'm just my curiosity. How much is a micro grant?
Well, right now we're giving anywhere from 5 to 25. That said, we're pretty new. We are still raising money ourselves. But we also have launched a financial literacy game. It's an actual board game. And it's a financial literacy game because most people that are in the Indigenous communities, myself included, when I started Virtual Gurus, I had no financial literacy. I didn't even know what like EBITDA meant, you know? So we created a board game and that's live right now. And it's out there. We go into communities and teach people how to play it. And it's showing youth financial literacy when it comes to starting businesses, to saving money, to everything. And on top of that, we built out the Walk Together program. So we're going into the communities and walking together with them to show them that it doesn't matter where you live and who you are, you can still start a business and be somebody.
I love it. And I love, if I'm listening to all these things, you're putting yourself in the middle. Like you build the platform to allow people, marginalized often, who weren't able to get access to work, to get access to work. Yeah. Everything is a platform. It's a game. I love that trend when I look back and as I've got to know you and I see the things, you're always in the middle of bringing some group to another group or bridging the gap for people.
Yeah. Right.
It's powerful.
Because, you know, it's needed. It's needed out there. And I mean, if there's a few things that I'm passionate about, it's obviously business. It's obviously scale. It's a building. Mm-hmm. It's Indigenous, anything to do with my indigeneity and anything to do with my queerness. So it's why not just put it all together and, you know, and help everything.
Well, the easiest way to show up is by being you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
if I spend time trying to be someone else, it sucks up too much of my energy.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit. Let's dive into season 1 of the show is the risk of certainty. And I met so many leaders that are like, what do you mean the risk of certainty?
Yeah.
And I think about the early days, and I listened to our first episode this morning. You were so clear, you were so concise. You're like, this is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. Mm-hmm. There was a high degree of certainty. And I'm curious now, as you look back, what was the balance and how did you draw that balance between staying curious and staying open to what was an evolving business, but portraying that air of, I know exactly what's going on, because with investors, with customers, they want that confidence. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about like the early days, even till now, how that's evolved, and how did you juggle and balance those two things in that journey?
You know, in the early days, you think that the way you're visioning it, everything is the way it's going to go. And you're kind of stuck into this like tunnel vision of this is where it's going to go. But you don't realize that along the way, as different things are happening, that it's actually not going that way. It's actually going this way. It's gearing hard to the right and you are going straight still, thinking it's going that way, but it's not. And you kind of become into this because you're just so focused on it, really. Yeah. But you become kind of, you know, you're not seeing it, which way it's really actually going. And one of the things for me was trying to recognize that at a very, like at the early stages, trying to recognize that as opposed to having people from the outside, like my advisors at the time or mentors telling me, whoa, hey, or employees. And at the time I had realized though that I was so stubborn that this is where it was. And it was totally going this way.
So the risk of certainty was a real thing for you in the early days.
Yeah. But I was like, this is where it's going. And it wasn't. And you know, at the same time, though, if I think about it, I think that's part of the way of learning because, I mean, you don't know until you're in it and then you have to learn it when you're in it. And like, you're curious and you got to figure it out as you're going through. And I didn't know a lot of that until it was almost too late. So I would say that a lot of those things they ended up being mistakes for me. But what makes it all better for me is the fact is I was able to fix those mistakes at the time and learn from that mistake and move on and get it back on the right
before
path.
It goes too far.
Before it went too far, right?
Yeah. So if you think about curiosity, even as a concept, would you say you're more curious now, having gone through those experiences, than maybe you were in the early founder Bobbie 6 years ago? Yeah,
I would say more curious now to the point that I'm so excited to start my next venture or next ventures. Because I think now, once a builder, always a builder. But I want to now do that. And I'm going to be able to apply a lot of that where before it was really about learning that way and learning how do you stay curious in it and really continue that drive forward without, let's say, the stubbornness or the, you know, I'm kind of an inexperienced founder that thinks this, but this is really what it is.
What's the balance though? Because you need a little bit of that. I want to almost call it like blind ignorance, which with a little brute force, because getting through those initial stage of taking something from an idea from your kitchen table, which I know you did, and bootstrapping it, to actually getting people to go, I think there's something going on here. I'm going to actually give you, 170 no's? I think you have. You heard no a lot. Like, where's that balance, do you think, if there's a founder listening right now, of like, you got to be a little bit stubborn, but you still have to at least keep half an ear open. How do you manage that?
To be honest, once you start opening up, how my mom will say, expand your horizons.
Yes.
You know, and once you start opening up your mind a little bit and opening up your curiosity, I guess I would say, and really driving forward in a way of you're not afraid of what that outcome's going to be. You're just kind of figuring it out, right? Once you kind of open up a little bit more, you start taking a little bit more risks. They might be a little bit more calculated risks, or they might not be calculated. But the more that you go through, you start getting a little bit more kind of, I guess, understanding the errors that could happen. For me, the moment I started realizing that I wanted to be a risk taker, and I was so new and nascent to being a founder. Like I didn't even have a grade 11, you know, and it was like, I had no idea what I was doing. I just needed to figure it out as I went. And then as I started figuring it out as I went, it's almost like, you know, you're getting on a bike and you're learning to ride it. You start kind of getting your training wheels taken off and you're going. I started being able to take more risks and understanding that, you know, it was okay for things to go off the path, but it was okay for me. And it was up to me to bring them back on, you know, and I started learning that kind of the hard way. And I think as you go further in, you start really learning that.
Was there a moment when you actually decided, I'm going to be Bobbie the risk taker? Like, was that like, you made it sound like it was very much probably through conversations and a little bit of self-discovery. You woke up one day and said, if I want to build, I need to take risks. Yeah,
it probably was the pivotal point of my growth and Virtual Groove's growth that made me realize that this has somewhere to go. This has the ability to go somewhere big. And it's only going to grow as much as I grow. And if I don't grow and learn and try to learn and pivot through things, try to expand my horizons, then the company wasn't.
Yeah, I hear your mom's voice going.
Yeah, she's watching this. She's going to be proud. But
I bet she is.
She, like I really knew that the point really for me was honestly when I started going through those 170 no's. A lot of the 170 no's were, you're not scalable. You have no experience. You have this, maybe let's not talk about your queerness. Let's not talk about you being Indigenous. Let's, stuff like that. I started getting to a point where I was going to let it beat me down and let me make a decision, which would have been to throw in the towel early and give up, because that's what people were telling me to do. And I realized that I can't. There was a light bulb moment that went on. And it was like, you can't. You have to be a risk taker. You have to stand up. You have to talk about your identity. You have to be yourself. Because all of that before that was me trying to be somebody I wasn't. And then the moment I started being myself, talking about who I am, being all over the media, talking to things, being on podcasting, being vulnerable, the moment I started doing that was the moment things opened up for me, and was the moment it just went poof, and I couldn't keep up.
What was the moment when you made that? Because I appreciate that. And we read that, when you're yourself, people gravitate towards you. And my business partner always jokes, we wait to have trust to be vulnerable. But the second we're vulnerable, it immediately creates trust.
Yep.
But yet everyone's going to be listening and go, yeah, that's great. That's for you guys. That's something you've experienced. You're on the journey. Was it a coach? Was it, did you go on a vision quest? Did you go for a walk in nature? Like, I'm curious how you went from falling in line with you should fit a certain mold that wasn't working for you to actually making, because it sounds pretty fluid now, but I'm imagining at the time that was a lot of soul searching.
It was. What the moment was, and this wouldn't have anything to do with a mentor or me putting myself through Harvard or any of that kind of stuff, like going and figuring it out. It had to do with somebody that worked in my platform, which was the whole reason behind me building the company in the first place, right, was to help underserved founders. I was on a radio show, and I was talking about why I built it. And one of the questions was something about why did you build this and why now? And when I explained how I was a queer Indigenous woman in tech that nobody believed in, and I've been struggling my entire life to prove myself, and I said that on the radio, and it aired that day and then the next day. And the next day, a young, beautiful trans woman showed up at my office at the time and was actually on their way to do something not so good, because they couldn't be themselves at their job at the time. They were forced to wear suits, and that's not who they were. And they heard my story, and they cranked the wheel, stopped, Googled where I was, came to my address and showed up, and was just like, you kind of saved my life because you're vulnerable. You told me this. And all I kept thinking, if she can do this, then I can do it. And it was that turns the whole thing for me, where I decided I was going to tell my story and tell my truths and be who I am. Because at the end of the day, if I can just inspire one person a day, then I'm inspiring a nation. And that's the whole number one thing I went for.
It's a great story. I love that story. I love that they didn't just message you or text you. No. They physically came to you.
Physically came inside my office.
How big was your team at that point?
3.
That's even better. And all 3 of us. So thank you for, again, why I love chatting with you, because you're so honest and you just show up. So, which is the whole point of the story. But now building a culture that also has that same level of authenticity. Yeah. And as leaders, sometimes we're like, well, I'm going to act a certain way, but or I want you to act a certain way, but I'm not going to show up like that. Yeah. Did it have the same impact on your team? Did that leading by example is the best way, not the only way?
It did. In the early days, I would say no, because I didn't know what our story was then fully. Yeah, okay. I didn't know how to talk it out as much. Like I didn't even really do a lot of media things or podcasts at the time. And once I started talking about it, then it really attracted the right employees for me. Okay. I would say this last 3 years, the employees that worked at Virtual Gurus were the best Virtual Gurus has ever had, because these employees were there not because they wanted a paycheck. I mean, let's be real. We're a startup that is VC backed. We couldn't pay a lot, but we certainly gave everybody a fun space to work. Bring your dog to work in your slippers, here's some lunch, You
find ways to balance it out.
Right. Their perks helped, but I mean, they weren't the why. The why was every single person that came through those doors to work for us were because they had a story, and they felt that was the place they could be where their story would be accepted. And it was. And I would like to say that in the later days, all of those people who, have now dispersed, some are still working for the company, some are not. I would like to say that they'll remember that job for the rest of their lives because of that. And for me, that is success right there.
Well, and hopefully they take that influence. I know Calgary, we've been on this journey of we need more exits so that those people can go and infiltrate and inspire other organizations. And I think we're just on the journey, right? It takes time, and you've got to have some of those spin outs for that to happen. Thinking about, you mentioned earlier about when Bobbie the risk taker showed up. I have a persona, it's Bobbie the risk taker. How did you maintain that in your culture where people also felt safe to be like, well, I think this is going to work. I'm pretty certain, but I'm willing to try because I know I'm not going to get lambasted. Yeah. So you can call it psychological safety. You can call it just creating a human environment. Yeah. How did you balance? Because as you grow, those can get tricky sometimes.
They can. I've questioned myself many times on the question of, does everybody in your company feel 100% safe at all times? Probably not. Right. And how can you make them feel that? And deep down, I don't think there's any way that any given time, every employee is feels 100% psychologically safe. And as the leader, you take that on your back, which is a big response. That's no joke. It's no joke. And it hurts, I think, you more than them in a way when there's calls you have to make that aren't okay. And, so when I started really taking a lot more risks in my decision making, we're going to start selling this service. We're going to do this. We're going to build the platform. We're going to build AI. We're going to do this. I knew that, it could be half and half depending on the decision, that some employees were good with it, some weren't. And obviously I would hear them out as to why they weren't. And I'd say, okay, great, we're doing it, right? Because this is it. At the end of the day,
the leader still needs to make a decision.
You still have to make a decision.
Yeah, I can be as curious as we want, but we're going this way.
You're going this way, right?
100%. That's curious in life is one thing. Curious in business, someone's making a choice.
Somebody has to. 100%. And I get that your decisions aren't going to be, people aren't going to side with your decisions at all times. Yep. I think my number one struggle was that I wanted everybody to trust my decisions. And it was really important to me too. And so I tried to make everybody happy versus understand the risks that needed to go. And I think that's where mistakes happened, and for me, I'm not saying there was a big mistake or anything, but there were mistakes that happened because I was trying to make everybody happy. And then when it came to the point where I said, you know what, I'm just going to do this. And thank you. I'm hearing what you're saying, but I'm going to go this way. And this is where we're going. Let's go. It wasn't until then that really good things started happening, like the scale, the growth. So I wanted them to think, and I wanted to think that the employees at the time that maybe weren't happy were saying, okay, you know what, I could trust her decisions. And I understand this, but it's hard when you're in a scale up and you're moving so fast and there are balls being thrown at you at every angle and you're trying to catch everything. It's really difficult. And so the employees probably had the hardest time during that fast scale.
And the reality is, did you lose some key people at those times?
You do,
People self-select, and we're all entitled to self-select, right?
You are.
You chose to be on the journey, and it's gonna move.
Right. And I would have talks with them on that, and same with our HR team and everything. And we would say, you have the right. If you want, we can help. You start looking for work, and so this way you're not in work. You could still give you 2 weeks notice, and
let's be cool about it.
Let's be cool about it.
Let's not be shitty. Let's not be shitty.
Yeah, because
oftentimes it gets like, I'm wrong, you're right, I'm wrong, and nobody wins in that.
Right.
Versus hey, we're no longer aligned. That doesn't make you or me a bad person. Yeah. Let's move forward. That's a very different environment than a lot of places end up being.
It is.
In my personal experience.
Yeah.
Even earlier versions of me as a leader, I was kind of a shithead sometimes.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to be validated and right. And even when, looking back, I wasn't right.
Yeah.
All the time. Shocker.
Yeah. Now I can honestly say at the time I might have thought I was right on all my decisions, but I certainly wasn't. Nobody is. Yeah. And
the value of reflection.
Yeah. And I started realizing that more as you go in. And that's 9 years of running one business, one scale up that went from $0 to however millions. So, it's great that I learned from it. And I think the employees all learned from it. But if there's something I would do different moving forward, is I would be taking a lot more calculated risks from day one.
And maybe worry a little bit less about having everybody on board. Yeah,
at the end of the day, you can't carry everybody on your back at all times, right? So you just got to go. And I think that's something that I've learned.
Just a random question. So 9 years. How many versions of the business existed in that 9 years? 4 versions, 5 versions, 10 versions,
I would say
150 versions?
five, yeah.
Five solid
Yeah.
like life cycles.
Yeah. And I told myself from day one, and I'm at peace with this, is that the moment the company started losing the vision that I wanted,
Okay.
was the moment it was my time to go. And I mean, I'm not hurt about passing the baton on and saying, hey, good luck, run it, let's go. I'm not hurt about that. In fact, I was really excited about it because it just made me go like, oh my God, I'm passing the baton on to my legacy, you know? And it's this amazing feeling.
Well, as to your point about being a builder,
Yeah.
I can build other things.
I can build
other things.
Yeah.
And there's a sense of freedom that probably was a little bit intoxicating in that moment of like, I'm kind of free again.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I don't have to set an alarm, and I was sleeping in and living at the campsite all summer. It was
Sounds
great.
like a lovely way to spend the summer in your RV, because I follow you on Instagram.
Yes.
How many versions of you? 5 versions of the business in those 9 years. How many versions of Bobbie in those 9 years?
You know, I would say it's the same version, one version. However, I would say just a little bit more of a version that has gone through the different areas, like, you know, the seasons of running a business. I'm a seasoned version.
Yes, I like that. How do you like your leaders? I like them a bit seasoned, actually. But there's only one way to get there.
Yeah.
You've got to go through the time. You've got to go through the drying out pros, however you want to do the seasoning metaphor. Thinking about that certainty that you have to have any time as a leader. But how is that balanced of like when you were standing up on stage being like, I'm 100% certain, even in the back of your mind when you're like, well, maybe that's true, maybe it's not true. Have you become less certain with time? Or is it that, like to your point, I'm certain, but I can de-risk it a bit. I can look at it from different perspectives. Has the certainty changed, or has the rigor and maturity that gets applied to it changed?
I think it's the maturity that gets applied to it changes. So, you know, at first you're essentially just throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what works and sticks, right? And you're like, okay, is this going to work?
But you're throwing it confidently.
Right.
You have to. You can't just lob it. You got to throw it against the wall.
Right. And then you're like, this is going to work.
100%.
And it all falls.
As you sit back, as it all falls on the floor.
Right. And so where now it's I'm just lobbing nicely, like a piece at a time, and like going, I know this is going to work. I'm just more calculated about it. I'm more data driven about it. I'm more understanding of what's probably going to work, what's probably not going to work. And if it doesn't, then I'm curating enough data that I'm going to understand the why. So then I can go back and
learned something. I didn't blow something up.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that that's like kind of in the end where it really started going for me. I wouldn't say in the end because it's not in the end, but
sounds very
I would
finite.
say in the last like year was, you know, I started making a little bit more of those calculated decisions based on what others wanted and on the board and this and that. But I think for me, it was that I was really proud of even going more calculated into it and saying, okay, wait, if we go in here and we're going to do this and we're going to go here, then this might happen, which is great. But what if this happens? So how do we take that data to go to here? And when you would apply it, it'd be a little bit of a slower path, but all of a sudden you would see like a uptick.
But less risk and more to show for it.
Yeah.
I love that strategic curiosity of like, we could go here and here. And if it goes wrong, this is how we.
Yeah.
And when you're laddering up to a board, that's kind of what they want to hear too, right? That you've thought through it.
Yeah.
Not just, what if it doesn't work? It's going to. That's not acceptable.
And you know, and I could say that, you know, my board, I mean, bless them, because probably for the first 4 years, they were like, oh my God, this girl's like, just like a bunny rabbit. She's got this and this and this. Where near the end, it was a little bit more easier of, well, here's why. And here's what we're going to do. And if it doesn't work, we're going to go here. And here's why it's going to work, though, because the data. And you become a little bit more calculated in a way where you start trusting yourself more because you're making that right decision. But it didn't come easy for any of that, you know, and you had to kind of learn the hard way. And I think that for some, it does come easy, and it's okay too.
Does it, or does it just look like it does?
Maybe it just looks like it does.
I think some of us do a good job of making it look like everything below the water is fine.
True. Because
and it's chaos.
Like, even before we started recording, we were like, you know, everybody was, you know, saying, oh my God, Bobbie made it so easy. Like Bobbie's got this, and that. And it's like, well, it's not easy. It was probably the hardest thing in my life. But
I like to push back on that. Unless you take the time to really talk to somebody, you don't actually know what they're going through.
Yeah.
You don't.
No.
But we put out good stories on our social medias and we portray in the world.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's the curse of social media in general. So that's another podcast for another day. We portray the shiny bits.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the image that you want to portray to the world. But I think when I sit down, and what I love about this and why I wanted to have you on the show is the authenticity of like, oh yeah, okay, no matter what it looks like, here's what it's really like.
Here's what's really like.
It's a bit chaotic.
Yeah, and yesterday I just did a talk at Platform and Platform Calgary.
I'll give them a plug all day long.
Yeah,
Platform's
it was
awesome.
amazing. It was with the A100
Okay,
crew,
right on.
and then Platform came together. And I told my story of, from start to exit type deal. And it was a thing of telling everybody that you don't know what's going to go right. You don't know what's going to go wrong, but you still just got to build it anyway. You got to go. And now's the best time to go. It's just like build, and go. And it might work. It might not. You might exit in 9 years like I did. You might not. You might be in it for your life. You might not. You might sell. You might have to raise money. You might not.
The world might
have
change.
to raise.
Like there's a lot of factors.
Right. And it's just a build it anyway and go and just trust that you're going to learn along the way. It's okay not to know everything.
We're getting to the journey of the 9 years, but the last 6 months has been probably this is the first time you've exited.
Yes.
I bet next time you would know a lot more than you did this time. How did that balance of curiosity, certainty, your relationship with the board, your relationship with, because while you're in a sales process, you're still not running a business.
Yeah.
Still, things are still moving forward. And oftentimes I've heard founders been like, the sale didn't go through and I lost 4 months because I stopped building. Talk to me about the last 6 months and how you kept the curiosity and certainty balanced.
Yeah.
And maybe, of course, always a chance to say what you might do differently, but we'll save that for the end.
Well, in all honesty, though, back in June 2025, was when we really decided we were going to do what's called a dual track. And so we were going to go for either raising more money or selling the company. And it's not because we weren't scaling. Like we were scaling, we're in growth mode and everything, but you're at that part where it was time to really focus on profitability and really focus on becoming super lean. Yeah. So we did agree that it would be better for the founder to kind of step aside, but still be a part of the business. And I was okay with it. So I actually stepped into a president role, which was really still being the face of the business. I was okay with that, because I was starting to become decision fatigued, and I was, I wouldn't say losing my mojo, but getting to the point of 9 years where I wanted to enjoy my first year of marriage and just relax and,
phases and stages.
Yeah. And so, luckily my successor was, working with the company and I essentially brought him on for that. And so, he took over and then we did get an offer, right away, which is good. And so for me from like June until the sale went through in November, I really wasn't a part of the virtual gurus at all, other than, the board meetings, because I sat on the board, to really being a part of some of the decisions, not all of them, to really just chilling. Like I worked maybe an hour a day.
Straight up chilling.
Yeah. Like I was living the life and I got the taste of it. I realized more than anything that I was ready for some downtime, and so I got to relax.
It can be a hard transition for a lot of founders.
Yeah. But
you got to kind of know yourself on that journey too, right?
And I thought it was going to be a hard transition. I really struggled a little bit mentally thinking this is going to be really hard because all I've known is virtual gurus. Yeah. All I've known is the hustle that I've done for the last 9 years. And I was so afraid that I wasn't going to handle it well. And so was my wife, my wife was thinking, oh, wow, this could go one way or the other. And
I've heard stories where the wife might be encouraging you to go back to work.
Yes.
I've had many wives have been like, my husband's been home and it's driving me nuts in that scenario because that's like you said, you've all known and it was all encompassing for you.
I thought for sure I was going to drive her crazy within the first week, but
you guys survived, obviously. Yeah. That's great.
But I will say during the time, what was really uncomfortable was knowing what was happening and not being able to tell my employees. All of these people came to work there because of me. All of them trusted me. All of them loved the mission. And they started seeing the mission was going towards a sale. And I just felt helpless. I felt like because I had a very good open door policy with all of them. I wasn't in the office anymore. I wasn't whatever. And I couldn't tell them that this was the best because we're preparing for a sale. And
strategically, you had to keep it.
We needed to retain the team. It was important. And I think that's probably the thing that ate me up the most. I think that was the hardest thing for me because I'm a very honest person and upfront and honest person with my team. And I couldn't be at that time. And I just, and then when the sale went through and seeing how it was, and there was a few layoffs because you're getting rolled into another large company. So of course you can't take everybody.
There's casualties, right?
Yeah. And it was just really difficult. And, my wife was one of those ones that were laid off too. And so, and I knew that ahead of time that was coming. So it was just, being in that part was tough, and I blamed the board. I blamed the new CEO at the time, and I was really upset about it. But I realized that that's just a part of the process. And in order for me to understand and learn what it's like to go through an acquisition, these are the things I'm going to have to go through so I can learn. And so I'm happy and confident that I stayed curious about it.
Yes, touche.
Touche. But
because the process is happening, so I can take from it, or I can feel beat up by it.
Yeah.
I can choose to learn.
And that's what I did. And it took 3-4 months for me to really sit there and go, I could choose to learn, or I could choose to really hate this. And I chose to learn from it. And it was, like a big weight off my shoulders. And to this day, when I'm talking to some of the employees that are ex-employees now, I kind of make sure I'm telling them that. Just understand this is part of the process. I knew that we were scaling into something that was going to eventually sell one day. And just know that you were part of the story of that to there. So be proud of that,
As a leader, as a human being, over the years, have you gotten better at putting yourself in the other person's shoes?
Yeah.
Sometimes when we're younger, I wasn't that good at that.
No.
And I'm not saying I'm awesome at it, but I'm better at it than I used to be. And I'm hearing you talk. There was a lot of if I look at it from this side, I can learn. If I look at it from this side, I'm going to be pissed off.
Yeah.
So I got to choose. That flexibility is not always easy to do,
it's
especially in the
not
moment.
easy. You have to dig hard within. And I've read a lot.
It chafes.
I've read a lot of self-help books. I've been doing a lot of digging in deep to get through a lot of the, I'd say, trauma from all of it.
When I say we carry around,
right? And it's been a tough pill to swallow, but you feel so much lighter at the end of it when you realize that you took the road that was better for you, and I felt so much better about that. I feel so much better about it. So
has that personal improvement journey, has that been a lifetime journey for you, or is it something you're leaning in? Maybe now you have a little bit more space. Are you leaning in even harder? Because it all starts with self, in my opinion. All starts with self.
Yeah, I'm leaning in harder now, probably because the more I've learned about myself and what kind of a person I am, the more that so much opens up within you, right? 100%. And so I've started really digging deep, being into ceremony in the Indigenous world and really learning exactly that, putting myself in other people's shoes, really learning a little bit more of a softer approach while trying to make sure that I'm still loving myself just as much, but for me, when you're running the business, your ego is a little bit bigger. You're just hustling hard, right?
But almost it has to be to a certain extent.
It has to be, right?
Because you need to have enough brute force to push through the shit to get to the top of that next peak. And then there's the fall summit. And then guess what's after this peak? Another peak.
Yeah. And then when you're getting to this part, you're kind of on the outside looking in going, wait a minute, I don't have to be that anymore. Right. And that's the hard part where you're hey, there's a balance of I had to be this as the founder and go. And then you're here and you're wait a minute, I don't have to be that anymore, but I could still equally take what I've learned, take everything that I have learned, take all of the things inside of me and apply it in a much more positive way. Not in saying that it was a negative way, but saying that everything I've learned in that way has helped me
better.
Yeah.
Was it about giving yourself permission or even seeing it? Both?
It was giving myself permission. This last 8 months was probably the hardest for me. It was mentally, physically, but it tested me. It tried me. It did all of that.
Questioning everything.
Yeah. And all I wanted to do was come out a better person. And, for me, there's a documentary being made about me right now.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm off to the Philippines this week. I'm speaking all over the world, and I'm building out the Tapwi platform and stuff. So good things are happening. And I would like to say it's because I've let go and I've learned to dig a little bit deeper into who I am and do things and apply it the way I want.
And we could do a whole podcast on that right there. But you said, obviously reading, used the word ceremony, which to me is very powerful. And with Indigenous, there's ancient knowledge. We've been on this journey for a long time. And I think a lot of it got forgotten about. And it feels like it's being rediscovered right now a little bit, or that's just where my brain is seeing.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about that discovery and with your Indigenous background and how much is that tapping into that wisdom that's always been there.
Yeah. In the Indigenous world, money is trauma. Right. And for me, the trauma that I feel, and I'm not saying from just the exit, but from the last 9 years of everything that I've been through and done to really run this business and do it, it's all trauma one way or another. It's trauma. It's all tied to money. It's tied to VC back money. It's tied to raising. It's tied to becoming positive, like cash flow to money in the bank, to keeping the lights on, everything. And it's really, really hard because you are carrying the whole world on your back, especially when you're an Indigenous person going through that. Yeah. And there's not many of you. Like, I think I'm the first Indigenous.
I mean, there wasn't a playbook you could just like pull off the shelf and had it all.
Yeah, there was no instruction book for me to do this. But yeah, and I think for me was digging in and, going back to my roots, and I've talked to my mom a lot about it. Mom would say, okay, well, what can you learn from this? And that's almost all she would say to me is, okay, so
open
move
your
on
horizons
and
what can you
learn from here, right? And I'm like, it's not that easy, and stomp my feet and run out the door because we're all
little kids underneath, Bobbie. I'll throw a tantrum right now.
Right? But it was really about digging deep and being in ceremony with yourself to understanding that this was the path that was carved out for you. These were the cards that were laid, and it's okay. And you know what? You've done a lot. Like, what about thinking about the positive of all the goods you've done in that 9 years, and thinking about what can you take that to learn from it onto your next venture of what you're going to do. If whatever I'm going to do, and it's like, take it on, take what you've learned, apply it. And what can you do to help the next founder and underserved person feel supported? Because I don't necessarily think I had the support from my closest, we'll say, investors and advisors that I needed, and I want to be that person to have that support for them, because as an Indigenous person,
back to seeing a need and doing a better version of it.
Yeah, I want to be a better version. Yeah.
It's so interesting that journey of self, and it so easily gets, read another book, take another course.
Yeah.
But it's all in here.
It's all
giving
there.
yourself permission, and even the biases, again, anything come to mind in terms of what you used to think versus now, you kind of almost laugh at it. Because I like to look back on earlier Tyler and go, wow, that was a real knucklehead thing. But that was what I knew at the time. Yeah. And bias is everywhere in our lives. We see it, we filter that way. Anything comes to mind for you in something that even in the early days that you believed was true, and now you look back on it and go, oh wow, what a different way I can look at this now and move myself forward. Because I think leaders were riddled with them. Yeah. But because we're leaders, sometimes we often just get to espouse them. Yeah. as truths. Yeah. And maybe they're not always true.
Yeah. I think really the number one thing is just you're not always right, and it's okay.
The audience just shuddered, right? Because what do you mean? What do you mean?
Right?
What do you mean?
But I think, there was
the I'm right bias.
Yeah, right. Like there is a time there though where I was like, no, I'm right, you're wrong. And I think as leaders, who I am now as a leader versus 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Totally different person. And something now where it's just the more you open that door and keep it open for them, the more that person's going to shine. And that's where I didn't before. I would be like, you know what, that was wrong. That didn't look okay. This is wrong. Start over. Wait a minute. Let's talk about how do you make that person feel enlightened and make that person feel why it was okay for the mistake they made, but let's encourage them to continue going to make it better, right?
It's a coach, right?
Right.
Being a coach.
Yeah. And I didn't do that at first. And
I appreciate you're like, oh no. I feel you. I got a few of those bricks in my backpack as well. I'm like, God, what a dick. I heard such a good comment the other day from a friend of mine. She goes, Tyler, before you give feedback, always ask yourself, are you helping to make that person a better version of them, or are you just trying to make them a version of you? Yeah. I was like, ooh.
That's deep.
It hit me hard because I'm like, now I'll catch myself about to tell someone something. I'm like, okay, how can I frame this in a way that would be relevant back to your point about what can we take away from this? And, again, how do you keep a culture of questioning versus defining alive?
Yeah. I think now I'm probably the kind of person where though I ask so many questions that I get kind of annoying. And
Some
then
of the smartest people I know ask the most
yes.
questions. Absolutely. Well,
right. And then I would get a little bit annoyed, and I realized that I'm probably getting more annoyed with myself than they are with me. But for me, it wasn't just encouraging people that questions is exactly what's going to get you to where you need to go.
Yeah.
And if somebody's not going to make you feel safe enough that they can ask questions, then that's a problem, right? And so I
questions
really
without safety fall flat.
Yeah.
Like, you get half baked or you get false truths.
Exactly. Yeah. And I really encouraged all my leaders to, it's okay. Like, there were times where I would be sitting around the table in our weekly our weekly leadership meetings, and some of the leaders would show like frustration about some of the questions. And so it's really about leading them to understanding too, like, you know what, like questions might seem annoying to you, but they're probably more annoying to the person asking them because they feel like they're annoying you. So
it's this bad cycle. It's the cycle of abuse of a question.
Yeah,
absolutely.
right.
Well, but it all comes back to safety.
Yeah, it is safety.
I even joke about it in the book. Like I remember early in my career, I'd meet people that were super successful in my mind, but they'd ask like what I thought were the silliest questions.
Yeah.
But they weren't afraid to ask anything, but they were learning. And
Yeah.
they'd ask and they'd ask. And then all of a sudden the asking would start to become directive a little bit.
Yeah.
And it took me a few years to go, oh, okay, they're not asking dumb questions. They're learning. And they're not scared to ever act like they don't know the answer.
Yeah.
And I think that's a gift as a leader.
Yeah. Somebody had said to me one time where they were like, there's no such thing as a dumb question. And one of the leaders were like, actually there is. Yeah. They're all dumb. And it was like, wait a minute, what? And they were like, well, they're all dumb. It's just our job is to decipher through the dumbness. And I was like, okay, that's dumb.
Yeah. But I love playing the dichotomy of it.
Yeah. And you're like, no, but it's something that since I've been young, my mom or advisors have always said that to me, there's no such thing as a bad question. I didn't really cycle that through my leadership abilities and what I was doing until a little bit later on. And then once you start doing that, it's just like things open. If you can have your team be the best versions of themselves and then some, it's just the world's the limit. Like things happen where you're like, wow, you did that. That's amazing. Like, it's where you're just stopping that. And it's hard because when you're in a scale up and you have so many leaders and then you have so many team members, and then under that you have so many people working the platform that are freelancers, it is really hard to trickle that down.
Yeah, it is.
And I think that was probably my hardest leadership struggle was how do you lead it down, right? Like, how do you lead down?
Which is such a fantastic, because, going back to your investment comment, it all comes back to investment. Mm-hmm. You're hiring someone, you're literally investing in that person.
Yep.
If you're not elevating or helping them become the best version of themselves, you're actually shortchanging your investment as a business. Like, just to put this on a P&L, and balance it out. So how did you, did you find ways that worked better? Because I don't know if we've ever all figured it out, but how did you find ways that worked better at disseminating that culture and that way of being versus other ways that didn't?
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever figured that out. Because a lot of it comes on the trust of the leaders, and
is
for
it about
me,
trust at the bottom of the pyramid? Does it really just come back to trust?
I think it does, but I also think that everybody that I would like to say that were hired into the company that I and any company I would do moving forward, is that the HR team or the recruiting team, there's a reason we're bringing these people on. And for us, a lot of the people that were coming to us were because there was a story, whether they be immigrants to Canada, transitioning genders to whatever. I would like to say that everybody's coachable, until they're not, and then you have to make decisions that are not fun, but you have to. But I also do think it's on the leaders, right? Like, a lot of our leaders were moved up from down here, and they were moved up from, I wouldn't say down here because I don't think I ever looked at it that way. I'd say, let's say individual contributors moved their way up. And that's because they all started somewhere in the company and they saw the type of leadership that I wanted. But when you're putting your trust into other leaders and then maybe quite potentially you don't know what that other leader is doing or how they're, they're not really living your values. When you're in a big scale up, it's so much harder to watch for that. Yeah. And I really struggled with that near the end. And I'm going to say my leaders were all like that because I honestly, at the end of the day, I think, like I said, the team at Virtual Gurus was probably the best team, hands down, this last 3 years.
I love it.
But things start slipping away the bigger you get. It's harder to watch.
And as you went through those 5 versions, the formula kind of changes. Like there's the core beliefs and who you are and what you stood for. That the more you embrace that, the more everything worked better.
Yeah.
But the needs of an organization that has 30 people is different than one that has 130 people.
Yeah.
And the skills that's required to manage those bacteria, I hate doing it into a pyramid, but it is that way.
It is, yeah.
It's one-to-one or one-to-many, and you're now influencing 10 other human beings with your way of showing up.
Yeah.
That gets tricky to balance.
Tricky.
Humans are messy as F.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's be candid here.
MAF. Like, and I mean, for me too, like I can only imagine, you know, some of the like $1 billion unicorns out there, like the unicorns, and, you know, how they always have so much hate online, but you're like, you can only take a little bit of a grain for salt because you're like, well, wait a minute.
I know.
Now that I've actually been in the spot, I'm not saying we were a unicorn. We were nowhere near that, but we were certainly at the part of where I struggled with leading down and having everybody in the pyramid being part on the same page. I can only imagine somebody that big. And so how do you as a leader,
chaos.
you know,
literally chaos
like,
sometimes.
Right. Like, it's like, yeah.
You hear those stories a lot because oftentimes these are success stories. They get portrayed that way. And you talk to people, and I've heard the joke, you know, South Korea on the outside, but North Korea on the inside, and those kind of jokes.
Yeah.
But what journey were you? Where were you when that scaled to the next level? When were you no longer the right fit for that organization? And we'd love to not always take on our personal part of that.
I think
it's much easy for me to blame you, the leader, for why it didn't work out for me.
Yeah. I think when I stepped into president role in May was the perfect timing and the exact timing that was set for me.
Okay.
I knew it was coming for me. Like, it was nobody's decision but mine. But I mean, I started feeling like I've taken it as far as I could go. Yeah. It's time to move into something that brings me more passion again. Mm-hmm. You know,
like good for you for knowing yourself, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Like, I started losing the passion. And that's okay. And that's the one thing, like, you know, that deep and dirty talk from founders who have exited is, you know, I was talking to two of them the other day who have just recently exited with me here in Calgary, like all three of us from Scale Ups. And all three of us pretty much say the same thing. It's that it was our time to exit, and we were happy for that, because you get to that point where you're just exhausted, you're fatigued, you don't have the passion as much anymore. And you know, what makes it different though is if you're a founder that can accept that and say it, and versus just keep going and driving your business to the ground, right? So
which we've seen those stories.
Yeah,
for sure. It's always easy to see them from the outside.
Yeah.
Well, you're kind of literally living the same journey you just talked about the company maybe outgrows certain leaders or uncertain. Sometimes it outgrows you.
Yeah.
And you can always choose to step up, or you can choose to step to the side,
exactly.
which you did.
And I thought
point being is you made a choice.
It was better for me to step aside and say, okay, take my legacy and go. Let's go, guys, go. And I was excited for that. Yeah. Go.
Exactly. I know, totally.
Be one with the world.
100%. And was that I woke up one day and that was real, or was there a lot of back to the journey of self?
Yeah, it was really about the journey of self, like me sitting down with my wife for months and before that, even
a few fireside chats, literally.
Even before our wedding in December, like the prior year, I was starting to be like, okay, I'm tired. Yeah. I've lost the passion because the money that was given to us, which was great, like the raising, the passion got lost amongst everybody that was involved. And I was just
back to the traumas, as you mentioned earlier.
Trauma, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, it was, that was my time. That was my sign.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm excited.
The road signs go by. It's whether you see them or not, right? Yeah. Sometimes too. Like they're always going by.
Yeah. Oh, I seen it. It was like everywhere. Like,
big billboard, neon flashing. Yeah, I'd appreciate it. So thinking about going forward, I know you're excited. We talked offline about before we push play around the passion of your next venture. What are some of the leadership lessons or founder lessons or like curiosity, confidence, like this is a different Bobbie than 9 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's exciting because you're taking a whole new set of tools forward. Yeah. What are some of the standouts? Like what are the non-negotiables for you going forward for your next ventures?
Yeah. There's so many of them. I actually wrote a list and it was kind of funny. And the reason I wrote a list was because I'm obviously starting a new venture and I have a bunch of, we'll say, things in the fire right now that are happening for me that are good things. But, you know, I wanted to make sure that I would have non-negotiables. And I think right now it would be the way that I would have to raise money to the way that would work better for me. I think some of the things that I've learned is virtual gurus still could have scaled and grown on its own without such a large investment.
Ah, okay.
And
That's interesting.
I think that the passion would have still been there if I was running it the way I wanted to run it.
That's a powerful learning, because there is that take as much as you can.
Yeah.
But I've talked to founders, they're like, I should have taken a little less, kept a bit more control. Maybe things would have like netted differently.
100%.
Oh, cool.
100,
Okay.
150%.
Appreciate the honesty again about that one.
Yes. And I feel like it would have, I feel like my passion I wouldn't have lost my passion into what I created, I'm excited to have learned that. I'm excited to have realized when the light bulb went on.
There's often only one way to learn it the hard way.
Yeah. And then when the light bulb went on, I was like, oh, right. Okay, this is what this means, But the lesson I learned was I probably could have done it the way that a lot of people were telling me it probably would be better for you to go this way versus this way. I should have. That said, again, I'm all about learning the hard way. And I think that I just applied to the next.
You are.
So
you made it. You made it through.
Yeah. Yeah. And so for me, I think it's taking what you're learning and understanding that moving forward. Like you can take what you've learned and build your non-negotiables, or yes, I'm going to do this. I'm okay to bend here, but it's okay to say no. And that's one thing that I didn't realize that, it's like, hey, I'm just going to take all the money that's coming, and let things fall where they've fallen. And it might not necessarily have been a good thing for me. So, yeah.
Well, a different stage of your journey, a little more confidence, a little bit back to that confidence where it's critical. I think boundaries, you didn't say the word, I'm using it, but that knowing where to say no.
Yes.
And it's okay to say no.
Yeah. It's okay to say no. It's okay to set the boundaries. It's okay. In retrospect, I think
love
that.
Non-negotiables.
Non-negotiables. And I actually think that me deciding in May, June, that it was my time to like step aside and let somebody else run the roost, I think was because some of my boundaries were getting crossed. And I think that was where I was like, okay, you know what? Like my passion's lost, boundaries are crossed. This is enough. And I'm excited for that, because the old Bobbie would have just continued down that path, which is the wrong path, and I'm excited for that for me, and I find it more liberating. Yeah.
When those first moments showed up for you, was it hey, my boundaries are being crossed, or did it show up as like pissed off, annoyed? Like, did it show up kind of messy?
Oh, I was mad. Like,
I was down. Yeah, I was mad. No.
I mean, and then it was, just in even normal life, I don't stay mad for long. Like,
it takes too much energy. It takes too much energy.
Right. Like I have a little temper tantrum for 5 minutes and then I'm done. Right. And I'm like, okay, let's move on. So I wasn't mad for long. I just was mad at the moment of boundaries being crossed and feeling violated in certain decisions, that I think that like I said, the old Bobbie would have continued to let that go, where the new Bobbie, like the Bobbie that has learned, the Bobbie that has grown, the Bobbie that is not afraid anymore, and the Bobbie's not afraid to set a boundary, and
enforce them.
Right. But I was like, wait a minute. No. And I'm not saying this is anything bad about the board or about the company or about anything. It's more about the lines of where Virtual Gurus was going once I've lost a little bit more control of decisions and such. So it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. It was just hey, this is no longer serving my purpose. So
what I really appreciate about everything you're saying, there's so many times where you could have in this story blamed somebody else.
Yeah.
But you've not. Not once.
No.
It was always, that was a boundary, but I had to react to it in a certain way.
Exactly. And it's about me.
Not a victim.
Yeah.
Not a victim.
Not a victim. It's 100% about me learning in that moment. And what makes this more of a successful exit for me, but what makes this more of a success, the entire Virtual Gurus, the entire last 9 years for me, is the amount that I've learned. I'm leaving with like, holy crap, did I learn a lot from that, and it was amazing. And I mean, I'm actually very thankful for that.
Well, it's, we could end right there and do the mic drop. Yeah. How many moments where you could have exited stage left and you didn't.
Yeah.
And the benefit is you got to hear, you survived. Yeah. It's amazing. We are very resilient individuals.
Yeah.
But sometimes in the moments, those nights or mornings can be dark.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're messy, MAF.
MAF, yeah, totally, yeah. Messy humans are messy. I'm so excited for you. Anything you want to share about your new venture? Because I am a marketer at heart, so if there's an opportunity for you to put it out,
amazing.
where well, people can follow you. You have a great website. Give us some deets. Give us some deets.
Yeah. So there's something that I've learned, and I think a lot of it comes down to this conversation we just had, is a lot about your own personal truths, right? So I started Tapwi. It'll be at tapwi.com. We're just building the platform now, so nothing up there yet, but it's tapwi.com. Tapwi is truth for Cree, and Cree, it's Cree for truth. And I'm building kind of essentially like a FinTech style platform that is going to help underserved founders like me with actual truths behind running a business. A startup, a scale up. So, you need to raise money. Here are the hard truths. You need to have introductions to equity founders. Here's the truths behind that. Here are the founders. You're going
to tell all the dirty secrets.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be. This should be out there in the world.
Well, more of the resources of the dirty secrets from founder to founder. But
of course.
At the same time, giving them the resources where they can get that success. So they need to raise equity. Here's where we're going to go. They don't have any idea how to raise equity. We're going to help them. They need introductions to advisors and mentors. There's going to be an introduction platform right in the platform. There's going to be the Tapwi University, which is an AI-driven, full thing, everything from scale, start to finish, bootstrapping everything. And it's just going to be a platform of truth, SaaS kind of FinTech style platform. We're looking at building potentially some search funds into it, like search fund of...
Search funds are interesting. That's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
I find that was very interesting.
But that's where we can help build that next generation of underserved founders that might not have the ability to start something themselves, right? And but
they've got the passion, the drive.
Yeah.
There's so many. Well, the silver tsunami is a real thing.
Yeah.
There's so many businesses sitting out there right now that don't have succession plans.
Right. And I think for this, it's more of I want to create that next generation of founders out there and CEOs.
Yet again, there you are, right in the middle.
Yeah. Right.
And very much catering to a very similar cohort or group or community that you've been working with so far.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm excited
back to your
for
point,
it.
the need is there. You said that earlier.
Yeah. And just doing, resources and giving people the resources that they deserve, and it could be, for example, let's just say you got an option sheet from your board of directors, but you're like, have no idea what this option is, what it means, right? Like you should be able to go somewhere that's giving you the true resources on what that really means.
Back to true resources, unbiased answers.
Right. It's as opposed to having to go and pay for a lawyer. Because when you're new starting out, you don't have money for legal. Yeah. So, it's just those little easy things.
That's where the wrong agreements get signed and you get bought in. And how you set that structure up at the get-go can really hurt you in the long run, as I've been told by many founders. What you don't know will get you.
Right. And then writing a book.
Very fun.
Yeah.
No easy task.
I know.
They're saying you're going to run a race and then there's actually doing it. What's the plan on the book? Is it? Can you give us any details? Like when can we expect to read it?
Well, so the premiere of essentially, we'll say a documentary that I'm going to be in. It's kind of a pilot. It's going to be in May. And so the plan was to try to get the book kind of written by then, and before
certain dates for certain things to happen, right? You're like, okay, well, there's no point not getting it done for that day.
So I think it'll be sometime in the summer. But the book really is almost essentially, I would say it's borderline like an autobiography, really. Really about my childhood and the upbringing that brought me to the resilience that I am and who I am and why I'm so eager and why I'm a builder I'm pretty excited about it. There's some good chapters happening, and I'm excited for it. I've never thought people would want to buy a book of an autobiography of me, but it's like I get a lot of requests for it.
It's a very cool story.
Yeah,
and it's a lot from my own journey. It's an interesting experience to spend that much time thinking about how you think about something.
Yeah.
And going, wow, how did that come to be? How did I develop these skills that now I just that's just me and I show up, but somewhere somebody put that into the computer.
Yeah.
And family, community influences along the way, mentors, moms, dads, all the people. And when you force yourself to sit down and think about that, because it can be interesting of like, I did not know that's where that came from.
Yeah, there's going to be things.
Congrats on that. It's
learning,
a lot of fun. Yeah.
And I think the documentary is already we start filming next week.
Sweet.
And
I'm excited for you.
It's not really a documentary. It's like a pilot, like an hour pilot of the series. The pilot.
No big deal, just the pilot episode. That's awesome. Congrats.
I'm really excited about it.
That's fun.
It's awesome is they're actually recording my parents. Both sides of my mom's and then my dad and my family and my wife. They're coming out to our cabin. It's just a story of my life and what how I am, what got me from here to here, you know.
Super inspiring for people.
Yeah.
Random question. What are you the most curious about right now out there in the world? It's a crazy place. What's got you personally just excited to learn about?
You know, I think I'm just more curious about how can I take what I have learned and help the others that
Sweet.
need to learn that. Because a lot of things I've had to learn the hard way. And I know that's a part of growth, is we all have to learn the hard way. But if I could just give somebody a little bit of a step up, you know.
That
And
doesn't mean you can't smooth out the edges a little bit.
yeah.
You know, if you
Help a
stepped
little
on some
bit, right?
landmines, maybe someone could sidestep and still learn some.
Yeah.
They're going to learn some
Yeah.
other hard lesson, but maybe
Yeah.
they don't have to learn that one.
Yeah.
Like peer advisory, being in those types of environments.
Yeah.
For me as a leader, it's been key over the years.
Yeah.
People that have been there, they go, oh, hey, I see what you're doing. Curious. Have you thought about this? I'm like, I have not.
I have not actually. Yeah.
No, those are hugely valuable because what
Yeah.
you don't know can get you for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. I'm pretty
That's
excited
fun.
for it.
Well, congratulations. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy to know you. I've listened to our episode this morning and it was great. We just sounded so young and cute listening to us talk.
I know.
And it was like 6 years ago.
6 years ago is a long time.
I feel like so much has, well, it has, so much has happened in
Yeah.
the world we live in the last 6 years, but
Yeah.
congratulations on your journey. I think it's just fantastic.
As always, it's amazing because we could always, every time we chat, we can have conversations for hours. So
I love it.
I appreciate it. It feels
Authenticity
good.
goes a long way.
Yeah.
Bobbie, thank you so much for coming on and congratulations and all the best on your journey.
Thank you. Thank you.